Good afternoon, my name is Hola Atamanova and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform today. Today is day 691 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian occupiers, and now we continue talking about the situation in the south of our country. Joining us online is Natalya Gumenyuk, head of the United Coordinating Press Center of Security and Defense Forces of the south of Ukraine. Ms. Natalya, good afternoon. Glory to Ukraine, hello. Glory to the heroes. So let's start our conversation with the situation in the south of Ukraine for the time being. What is it like? Well, the situation remains quite complicated regardless of the work of the security and defense forces, which was quite successful within the last day. However, the enemy continues pressing on the civil population. They try to deteriorate the lives of people under these difficult weather conditions, shelling the social infrastructure, critical infrastructure, residential areas. They try to deprive people of the elementary access to civilization, to energy, gas, water supply. And it's safe to say that they continue pressure on our positions in the East Bank, where the security and defense forces hold the bridgehead. The enemy does not leave their assault operations. We've documented 7 such cases within the last days. They did not bring any results to the enemy. Our positions remained as they were, and enemy had to withdraw with losses. Also, the counter-artillery operations were quite successful on our end. We continue destroying the enemy means of protection, including OSA air defense system, plus 1 Grad MLRS, 1 tank, 7 artillery systems. It's the potential that enemy was using to exercise pressure on the West Bank, and now they need to renew and replenish and reestablish their fire positions. Ms. Natalya, you've you've mentioned about the East Bank. So what is the situation with population there? What is the situation specifically in Krinky, if we can talk about that? Well, talking about the general situation with the local population who ended up in occupation, they continue experiencing the pressure of occupational authorities. There is a forced passportization going on there. We understand it's clear the occupiers are prepared to the elections. They want to create the effective picture from elections to elections. They have the same standard work. They try to make people enter Russian citizenship, blackmailing them with restriction of access to water and electricity supply, to medical services and other critical utility services. Also, they continue connecting people to propaganda media networks. They try to make it free of charge and thus to impose that propaganda on people, issuing the antennas which broadcast very specific channels. So talking about the situation in Krinky, it's a sensitive segment because the enemy presses that area with fire. Battle operations are going on there incessantly. Our units hold their positions, and in fact the settlement has no single undamaged building. So this is what the Russian world looks like in the East Bank of Dnipro. We all know about A-50 being downed. There was also a report about a damage on Illusion 22. Can you give us a couple of comments in this regard? What is the scale of damage that was inflicted to Illusion 22? Well, one way or another, we documented the downing of both units of aviation, not just the regular pieces of aviation, not just the regular aircraft, but one of them was carrying a command post, a mobile command post, and another A-50 was the eyes of the enemy, because specifically with the help of this machinery, with the help of this aircraft. The enemy was observing our territory, targeting the intense missile strikes, and specifically with the help of A-50, they discovered the situation with future targets of their strikes. So let's count that this success will postpone the missile strikes over Ukraine. Ms. Natalya, just before we were talking to a representative of Kherson military administration, and he mentioned that about 50% of the apartment blocks in Kherson were either destroyed or damaged. So if you watch the dynamics of the strikes, what can you state? How did it change, and what the Russians mostly used to shell Kherson and Kherson region? Well, the enemy focuses their strikes on residential areas specifically, and they're trying to use the MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems, heavy artillery, more rarely with mortars, because we were able to push the mortar teams to the further distance, and the distance doesn't allow them to reach the West Bank, only in just a couple of sections, but sometimes they do use the tanks to shell the settlements of the West Bank, but mostly they try to use the unmanned aerial vehicles, including FPV drones, plus other modifications to which they attach the shrapnel munitions. And such shell munitions are very difficult to spot. They're the most dangerous, and the enemy targets the vehicles with them. This is why the recommendation of the military administration and of the local government is to minimize any travels by cars, because the cars of the police, of the rescue teams, were damaged by such drones. The enemy completely neglects the international humanitarian law, the law of war. They continue inflicting strikes on ambulances. All such facts are thoroughly documented, but the point is that people may get injured or die in such situations. So the enemy continues trying to maintain the number of shellings at 100 plus notch to cover all the West Bank infrastructure with fire, in order to disable the support of the Ukrainian troops on the East Bank. And for the people, we have to urge that they have to be very careful during traveling in open areas, because the enemy uses more and more drones now. Ms. Natalya, what do you observe in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea? Are there any missile carriers on duty over there? Yes. The enemy last day has deployed a ship group in Black Sea and Sea of Azov. 11+1 more assault ships are on battle duty in the areas along the shores of the Russian Federation. They still maintain the distance of 100 plus nautical miles to avoid the damage of their ships. And one of the missile carriers, the frigate Admiral Makarov, is on battle duty with 8 caliber missiles ready to be launched. The total number of the missile carriers in the equator of the Black Sea, including those in the ports, is being observed by us, as they may be out on battle duty within 2 or 3 hours. This is why we continue keeping track of the situation and reporting respectively. Now we see that the big assault ships are back to the ports due to the stormy weather, and the personnel is just not ready for such trials. And However, it continues to be of the high missile threat as the missile carriers are still on battle duty. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Do we have any questions on the floor? Well, now that we don't have any questions on the floor, we want to thank you, Ms. Natalya, for joining our broadcast. I'm reminding you, joining us was Natalya Gumenyuk, the head of the United Coordinating Press Center of Security and Defense Forces of the south of Ukraine. Thank you very much for being with us. Stay tuned, keep track of our announcements, and we want to thank our security and defense forces for what they're doing for us. Glory to Ukraine.